Fridge empty, stomach rumbling, challenge accepted. No supermarket trips for 7 days, my garden my only food source. This is about survival. Can I make it? Time to test my skills. Wish me luck. Day 1. Hunger pangs hit hard. Garden's bounty, a handful of radishes, not exactly a feast, more like a snack, chewing slowly, savoring every bite. Day 2. Creativity is key. Blended some tomatoes and cucumbers, cold soup. Called it garden gazpacho, tasted, earthy, dreamed of pizzas, woke up to zucchini. Day 3. Found 3 eggs, a miracle. Zucchini and herbs from the garden. Omelet time, sizzling pan, nervous flips, success, tasted like victory. Day 4. The morning started out calm, but by midday, I noticed the sky darkening in a way that made my stomach drop. Heavy, ominous clouds rolled in, swallowing up the sunlight and casting a shadow over my little backyard garden. The air felt thick, almost electric, and then suddenly, the thunder started. Loud, rumbling, and relentless. It was the kind of storm that makes you pause and wonder if your hard work is about to be washed away in a single afternoon. I rushed outside, heart pounding, and stared at my garden beds. My precious food supply, lettuce, spinach, arugula, all the greens I'd been nurturing for weeks, looked so vulnerable under that angry sky. I could almost hear the plants whispering for help as the wind picked up and the first fat raindrops began to fall. I felt a wave of panic. What if I lost everything to this storm? What if all my effort, all those early mornings and careful watering were for nothing? Without thinking twice, I grabbed every old blanket and sheet I could find in the house. I dashed back outside, getting soaked in the process, and started covering the plants as quickly as I could. My hands shook as I tucked the edges of the blankets around the garden beds, trying to shield the delicate leaves from the pounding rain and gusty wind. It was a frantic, messy operation, mud splashing up my legs, hair plastered to my face, thunder booming overhead, but I kept going, determined to give my greens a fighting chance. The storm raged for what felt like hours, but eventually, the thunder faded and the rain slowed to a gentle drizzle. I peeked outside, half afraid of what I'd find. The garden was drenched, the blankets heavy with water, but the worst had passed. Sunlight began to break through the clouds, casting a golden glow over the wet leaves and sparkling raindrops. The air smelled fresh and clean, like hope after chaos. I carefully pulled back the blankets, my heart in my throat, and wow, my salad greens survived. The leaves were still vibrant and crisp, glistening with droplets of rain. I couldn't help but smile, feeling a surge of gratitude and relief. Against all odds, my little patch of green had weathered the storm. It was a small victory, but in that moment it felt like I'd saved a treasure. The salad greens were more than just food. They were a reminder that with a little effort and a lot of care, even the smallest garden can endure the wildest weather. Okay, so day 5. I woke up early this morning just as the sun was starting to peek over the fence and the air was still cool and fresh. There's something about those first few moments of the day in the garden that feels almost magical, like the world is just waking up with you. I took a deep breath, stretched, and wandered out to check on my plants, not really expecting anything too dramatic. But today, something was different. The beans are finally ready for harvest. After days of watching them grow, measuring their progress, and resisting the urge to pick them too soon, I could finally see those plump, vibrant green pods hanging from the vines, practically begging to be picked. I ran my fingers over the leaves, feeling the cool dew, and started gently snapping the beans off the plant. There's a real sense of satisfaction in harvesting something you've nurtured from a tiny seed. It's like the garden is rewarding your patience and care. This is, like, a pretty big moment for me. I know it might sound a little dramatic, but honestly, growing your own food, even something as simple as green beans, feels like a huge accomplishment. I couldn't help but grin as I filled my basket, thinking about all the times I'd checked on these plants, worried about the weather, and hoped they'd make it. There's a kind of pride that comes with seeing the results of your hard work, right there in your hands. And hey, it means more than just salad today. Sure, I love a good salad, but having a real harvest opens up so many possibilities. I started thinking about all the ways I could use these beans, maybe a stir-fry or a simple side dish, or even just snacking on them raw. It's amazing how something so small can make you feel so creative and inspired in the kitchen. Plus, there's just something special about eating food you grew yourself. It tastes fresher, sweeter, and somehow more satisfying. I boiled them up with just a pinch of salt, kept it simple, you know? Sometimes the best way to enjoy fresh produce is to let the natural flavors shine. I watched the beans turn an even brighter green as they cooked, and the kitchen filled with this earthy, comforting aroma. When they were done, I drained them, sprinkled on a little sea salt, and took a moment to appreciate how beautiful they looked in the bowl. No fancy sauces, no complicated recipes, just pure garden-fresh goodness. But wow, it was filling. I didn't expect a bowl of green beans to be so satisfying, but after a few bites, I realized just how nourishing a simple meal can be. Maybe it's because I'd put so much effort into growing them, or maybe it's just the freshness, but every bite felt like a little celebration. I sat outside at the table, enjoying the sunshine and the quiet, and let myself really savor the moment. It's funny how something so ordinary can feel so special when you've been part of the process from start to finish. I'm honestly glad I planted extra beans. At first I worried I might have gone overboard, but now, seeing the basket overflowing, I'm grateful for every single plant. There's enough to share with friends and family, enough to experiment with new recipes, and enough to remind me that a little patience and care can go a long way. Today wasn't just about picking beans, it was about celebrating growth, both in the garden and in myself. And as I look at the harvest, I can't help but feel excited for what's still to come. Day 6 and, zucchini overload. Seriously, what do I even do with all this? Then I remembered Grandma's zucchini bread recipe. So I measured, mixed, baked, and man, the aroma was amazing. That first bite, sweet, moist, totally delicious. So day 1, I had like a handful of radishes and honestly a bit of despair, but day 7, zucchini bread and bean stew. That's contentment. My garden really provided, I survived, and I learned to appreciate simple food. 7 days, no supermarket. That was the challenge I set for myself, to live for an entire week without stepping foot in a grocery store, relying only on what I could grow, forage, or trade with neighbors. At first, it sounded simple enough. I mean, how hard could it be to eat from the garden for a week? I had visions of fresh salads, juicy tomatoes, and endless herbs, but as the days unfolded, I quickly realized this experiment would test me in ways I hadn't expected. The first morning I woke up hungry and excited, but after a few hours of digging, weeding, and harvesting, the physical exhaustion set in. My back ached, my hands were sore, and I was sweating under the sun. I found myself missing the convenience of pre-washed greens and packaged snacks. There were moments when I questioned why I was doing this at all. The garden demanded patience, effort, and a willingness to get my hands dirty, literally. I struggled to dig up stubborn roots, and sometimes the harvest was less than I'd hoped for. There were setbacks, like pests nibbling on my lettuce or a sudden rainstorm flattening my bean plants. It was a true test and honestly harder than I thought, but, more rewarding too. Every meal I prepared felt like an accomplishment. There's something deeply satisfying about eating food you've grown with your own hands. The flavors were fresher, the colors more vibrant, and I found myself savoring every bite. I learned to get creative with what I had, turning zucchini into noodles, making pesto from carrot tops, and even baking bread with wild herbs. Sharing extra produce with neighbors led to new friendships and a sense of community I hadn't expected. The garden became more than just a source of food. It was a place of connection, learning, and joy. I have so much respect for farmers now and for anyone who works the land. Growing your own food is humbling. It's a daily reminder of how much effort goes into every carrot, every tomato, every handful of beans. I realized how easy it is to take food for granted when it's always available on a shelf. Now, I see the value in every seed planted and every harvest gathered. The patience, resilience, and knowledge required to nurture a garden are immense, and I'm grateful for the lessons I've learned from those who do this every day. And a real sense of gratitude for nature. Watching the sun rise over the garden, feeling the soil between my fingers, and witnessing tiny seeds grow into nourishing food, it all gave me a new appreciation for the natural world. I became more mindful of the seasons, the weather, and the delicate balance that makes life possible. I learned to respect the rhythms of nature, to celebrate abundance, and to accept scarcity with grace. The garden taught me to slow down, to observe, and to be present in the moment. Would I do it again? Absolutely. This week changed the way I see food, community, and the earth itself. I'm inspired to keep growing, keep learning, and keep sharing what I harvest. The lessons from the garden will stay with me long after the challenge is over, reminding me that sometimes the hardest things are also the most rewarding.